Then Kuranosuke, having given all the money that he had by him to the abbot, said, "When we 47 men shall have performed harakiri, I beg you to bury us decently. I rely upon your kindness. This is but a trifle that I have to offer, such as it is. Let it be spent in masses for our souls." And the abbot, marveling at the faithful courage of the men, with tears in his eyes, pledged himself to fulfill their wishes. So the 47 Rohnins, with their minds at rest, waited patiently until they should receive the orders of the government. At last, they were summoned to the Supreme Court, where the governors of Edo and the public censors had assembled. And the sentence passed upon them was as follows: whereas, neither respecting the dignity of the city, nor fearing the government, having leagued yourselves together to slay your enemy, you violently broke into the house of Kirakosuke no Suke by night, and murdered him. The sentence of the court is that for this audacious conduct, you perform harakiri. When the sentence had been read, the 47 Rohnins were divided into 4 parties and handed over to the safekeeping of 4 different daimyo, and sheriffs were sent to the palaces of those daimyo, in whose presence the Rohnins were made to perform harakiri. But as from the very beginning, they had all made up their minds that to this end they must come, they met their death nobly. And their corpses were carried to Sengakuji and buried in front of the tomb of their master Asano Takumi no Kami. And when the fame of this became noised abroad, the people flocked to pray at the graves of the faithful men. Among those who came to pray was a Satsuma man, who, protesting himself before the grave of Oishi Kuranosuke, said, "When I saw you lying drowned by the roadside at Yamashina in Kyoto, I knew not that you were plotting to avenge your lord, and, thinking you to be a faithless man, I trampled on you and spat in your face as I passed. And now I have come to ask pardon and offer atonement for this insult of last year." With those words, he prostrated himself again before the grave, and, drawing a dirk from his girdle, stabbed himself in the belly and died. And the chief priest of the temple, taking pity upon him, buried him by the side of the Rohnins, and his tomb still remains to be seen with the those of 47 comrades. This is the end of the story of the 47 Rohnins. A terrible picture of fierce heroism, which it is impossible not to admire. In the Japanese mind, this feeling of admiration is unmixed, and hence it is that the 47 Rohnins receive almost divine honors. Pious hands still deck the graves with green boughs and burn incense upon them. The clothes and arms which they wore are preserved carefully in a fireproof storehouse attached to the temple, and exhibited yearly to admiring crowds, who behold them probably with little less veneration than is accorded to the relics of Aix-la-Chapelle or Trèves. And once in 60 years, the monks of Sengakuji reap quiet a harvest for the good of their temple by holding a commemorative fair or festival, to which the people flocked during nearly 2 months. A Self-Q once admitted me to a private inspection of the relics. We were ushered, my friend and myself, into a back apartment of the spacious temple, overlooking one of those marvelous miniature gardens, cunningly adorned with rockeries and dwarf trees in which the Japanese delight. One by one, carefully labeled, and indexed boxes containing the precious articles were brought out and opened by the chief priest. Such a curious medley of old rags and scraps of metal and wood, homemade chain armor composed of wands of leather secured together by pieces of iron, bear witness to the secrecy with which the Rohnins made ready for the fight. To have bought armor would have attracted attention, so they made it with their own hands. Old moth-eaten surcoats, bits of helmets, 3 flutes, a writing box that must have been any age at the time of the tragedy, and is now torn to pieces, tattered trousers of what once was the rich silk brocade, now all unraveled and befringed, scraps of leather, part of an old gauntlet, crest and badges, bits of sword handles, spearheads and dirks, the latter all red with rust, but with certain patches more deeply stained as if the fatal cause of blood were never to be blotted out. All these were reverently shown to us. Among the confusion and litter were a number of documents, yellow with age and much worn at the folds. One was a plan of Kotsuke-no-suke's house, which one of the Rohnins obtained by marrying the daughter of the builder who designed it. 3 of the manuscripts appeared to me so curious that I obtained leave to have copies taken of them. The first is a receipt given by the retainers of Kotsuke-no-suke's son in return for the head of their lord's father, with the priests restored to the family, and runs as follows. Memorandum. Item 1 head. Item 1 paper parcel. The above articles are acknowledged to have been received. Signed, Sodamagobe, Saito Kunai. To the priest deputed from the temple Sengakuji, His Reverence Sekishi, His Reverence Ichidon. The second paper is a document explanatory of the conduct, a copy of which was found on the person of each of the 47 men. Last year, in the 3rd month, Asano ta no Kami, upon the occasion of the entertainment of the imperial ambassador, was driven, by the force of circumstances, to attack and wound Kotsuke-no-suke in the castle, in order to avenge an insult offered to him. Having done this without considering the dignity of the place, and having thus disregarded all rules of propriety, he was condemned to harakiri, and his property and castle of Akko were forfeited to the state, and were delivered up by his retainers to the officers deputed by the shogun to receive them. After this, his followers were all dispersed. At the time of the quarrel, the high officials present prevented Asano ta no Kami from carrying out his intention of killing his enemy, Kotsuke-no-suke. So, Asano ta no Kami died without having avenged himself, and this was more than his retainers could endure. It is impossible to remain under the same heaven with the enemy of Lord or Father. For this reason, we have dared to declare enmity against the personage of so exalted rank. This day, we shall attack Kira Kotsuke-no-suke in order to fit the deed of the vengeance which was begun by our dead Lord. If any honorable person should find your bodies after death, he is respectfully requested to open and read this document. 15th year of Genroku, 12th month. Signed Oishi Kuranosuke, retainer of Asano ta no Kami, and 46 others. The 3rd manuscript is a paper which the 47 Rohnins laid upon the tomb of the master, together with the head of Kira Kotsuke-no-suke. The 15th year of Genroku, the 12th month and 15th day, we have come this day to do homage here. 47 men in all, from Oishi Kuranosuke down to the foot soldier Terasaka Kichiemon, all cheerfully about to lay down our lives on your behalf. We reverently announce this to the honored spirit of our dead master. On the 14th day of the 3rd month of last year, our honored master was pleased to attack Kirako Tsukenusuke. For what reason we know not. Our honored master put an end to his own life, but Kirako Tsukenusuke lived. Although we fear that after the decree issued by the government, this plot of ours will be displeasing to our honored master, still we have eaten your food, could not without blushing repeat the verse. Thou shalt not live under the same heaven, nor treat the same earth with the enemy of thy father or Lord. Nor could we have dared to leave hell and present ourselves before you in paradise, unless we had carried out the vengeance which you began. Every day that we waited seemed as 3 autumns to us. Verily, we have trodden the snow for 1 day, nay, for 2 days, and have tasted food but once. The old and disequipped, the sick and ailing, have come forth gladly to lay down their lives. Men might laugh at us as at grasshoppers thrashing in the strength of their arms, and thus shame our honored Lord. But we could not halt in our deed of vengeance. Having taken counsel together last night, we have escorted Kotsuke-no-suke hither to your tomb. This dirk, by which our honored Lord set great store last year, and entrusted to our case, we now bring back. If your noble spirit be now present before this tomb, we pray you, as a sign, to take this dirk, and strike the head of your enemy with it a second time, to dispel your hatred forever. This is a respectful statement of 47 men. The text, thou shalt not live under the same heaven with the enemy of thy father, is based upon the Confucian books. Dr.Legge, in his Life and Teachings of Confucius, page 113, has an interesting paragraph summing up the doctrine of the sage upon the subject of revenge. In the second book of Reiki, there is the following passage. With the slayer of his father, a man may not live under the same heaven. Against the slayer of his brother, a man must never have to go home to fetch a weapon. With the slayer of his friend, a man may not live in the same state. The lex talionis is here, laid down in its fullest extent. The Chao-le tells us of a provision made against the evil consequences of the principle by the appointment of a minister called the reconciler. The provision is very inferior to the cities of refuge, which were set apart by Moses for the manslayer to flee to form the fury of the avenger. Such as it was, however, it existed, and it is remarkable that Confucius, when consulted on the subject, took no notice of it, but affirmed the duty of blood revenge in the strongest and most unrestricted terms. His disciple, De Hea, asked him, "What course is to be pursued in the murder of a father or mother?" He replied, "The son must sleep upon a matting of grass, with his shield for his pillow. He must decline to take office. He must not live under the same heaven with the slayer. When he meets him in the marketplace or the court, he must have his weapon ready to strike him." And what is the course in the murder of a brother? The surviving brother must not take office in the same state with the slayer. Yet, if he go on, his princely service to the state where the slayer is, though he meet him, he must not fight with him. And what is the course in the murder of an uncle or cousin? In this case, the nephew or cousin is not the principal. If the principal, on whom the raven devolves, can take it. He has only to stand behind with his weapon in his hand and support him. I will add one anecdote to show the sanctity which is attached to the grace of the 47. In the month of September 1868, a certain man came to pray before the grave of Oいし Chikara. Having finished his prayers, he deliberately performed harakiri, and the belly wound not being mortal, dispatched himself by cutting his throat. Upon his person were found papers setting forth that, being a Ronin and without means of earning a living, he had petitioned to be allowed to enter the clan of the Prince of Choshu, which he looked upon as the noblest clan in the realm. His petition having been refused, nothing remained for him but to die, for to be a Ronin was hateful to him, and he would serve no other master than the Prince of Choshu. What more fitting place could he found in which to put an end to his life than the graveyard of these braves? This happened at about 200 yards distance from my house, and when I saw the spot an hour or two later, the ground was all bespattered with blood and disturbed by the death struggles of the man.